All right, welcome back. We're finally recording. It's been about a month and a half of trials and tribulations, but we've finally gotten here. Welcome back.
It's been a very busy time, and we've both been doing a lot of different things, so we're trying to keep everything moving forward.
Yeah, that's right. We've been, like you said, both of us have been very busy, and we'll touch on that in a minute. We even tried to record this last week, and then you had some computer issues that delayed us a full week.
Oh, I just can't believe it. I have this new computer, and suddenly it started crashing, and no idea why, so we brought it in, and it's like going to the doctor, as you know. As soon as you bring it in, it works fine. So they did a whole bunch of tests, they did a bunch of updates, and they said it's fine. We brought it home and we plugged it in and it crashed. But that's the only time it crashed. It's been running well since. I have no idea what the cause was. They don't either. But we're back on track and we're moving forward.
Hopefully it doesn't crash while we're talking.
No, that's the last thing I need. I have too much on the go as it is.
But here we are. We've persisted through a long delay. Like I said, we've both been busy, and then we have computer issues, but we're finally here. We're set up. We're recording, and we're going to try and get this thing done.
All right, away we go.
So let's just talk about what we've been doing for the past month and a half, because as you mentioned, it's been a busy time. So tell me about some of the things you've been up to since we last talked.
Well, I seem to do more talks than I plan. I doing 2 or 3 a month, which doesn't sound like a lot, but there's quite a bit of pre-planning has to go in. And one thing I've started doing is I've done some work with the firefighters here in Chilliwack. And it's been really quite interesting for both of us. I'm quite an extreme case for them to move me around, so they have to learn that I don't bend. They can't pull me from my arms or my legs. Try to get me in and out of the chair. Talk to them how important it is for my chair to go with me, and then I can't go up and down stairs. And so it was a really good learning experience for both of us, and we really enjoyed that. I've also done some teaching. I did one class at University of Fraser Valley. I talked to the nursing class about my experiences in health, and then I went to UBC, University of British Columbia, and did a lecture to the occupational therapists and talked about my experiences, my equipment, my life as a quadriplegic. It was I think they were very well received. We really did enjoy it, and I enjoyed talking to them and learning a little bit about how things work with them. So that's been really good. A lot of little social stuff with family and friends, and that's been a lot of fun. And then I also have been involved with the Special Olympics here in Chilliwack. I was asked to help out, and of course it turns into way more than I had planned, but that seems to take up a day or so a week of helping with the Special Olympics. And Special Olympics are for mentally disabled persons, not physically disabled. So it's a bit of a different issue from what I have. And it's been a lot of fun. I've only talked to the athletes a few times, but I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of the volunteers. So that really seems to keep me going.
So it sounds like you've been quite busy with a lot of different kinds of education.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just ask a few questions then, so because you did a lot, so now I gotta think about it all and try and come up with some interesting questions.
Yeah.
How big were the classes at each of the universities you did?
I'm going to say between 20 and 30 students in each of them. So I talked to the 4th year nursing students, maybe 30, or anyways, the senior nursing students, and a lot about, you can teach someone to be a caregiver, but you have to really learn to care. And we talked quite a bit about that. I really try to bring that forward about how important nursing is for someone like me when I'm in hospital and rehab. And that seemed to be really well received. And then occupational therapists, now OTs do a lot of things like equipment. They have to figure out what kind of wheelchair I need, what kind of bed I need. again, I have a lot of issues with skin because I don't move. If I don't have the proper bed, I'll start getting bed sores and skin issues, and that is not a good thing for me. So we talked quite a bit about my equipment, my therapy when I was in rehab at GF Strong here in Vancouver, and I think it was really well accepted. I filled my full hour, and, and away we went. And then I think I only have 3 this month to talk at, so awfully busy, but it's mostly fun.
Yeah, fun. It sounds like it. Yeah. I think it's a unique opportunity for them, like you say, like it's 4th year nursing and it's an education setting, but I don't know how often, like, do you know how often they get speakers in who are in a situation like yours where you are very, very familiar with the system and the services and you have some unique perspective. You're a patient, for lack of a better term, speaking them to directly and saying, this is why it's important in my position. Do you think do they get a lot of that, or are you kind of a one-off?
I think I'm sort of the exception to the rule. I don't think they get very often a patient in there, someone, not the other side of the gurney, as I like to say. I am on the gurney, I'm on the bed, and talking from my point of view as someone who was in the system for almost 10 months in hospital. And now I carry on. I'm still in the system, and I will be for the rest of my life, trying to figure out what's happening next. So, yeah, it's been really quite good. They really try hard, and it's been a lot of fun.
It's good to hear. I'm glad you're enjoying it. It sounds like a really cool thing to do. So that's awesome. Yeah. So the firefighters, you're doing some work with them and educating them about you, and like you said, about how they can move you and stuff. So I have questions. How does a firefighter move you if they need to get you out of, say, a burning house?
Yeah, we really had a long chat about this, and if I can, we will shelter in place, try to hide from the fire. And that's in an apartment building, so a modern apartment building. Each apartment is really well protected from the next. So if I'm in an apartment that's safe, it's almost better for me to stay there. And if that doesn't work, the other thing is to go to a stairwell, and they're fire resistant, and that would be good for me as well. But if they have to get me downstairs, we had a long chat about this, and the best way is to use a blanket of some sort. They have fireproof, not blankets, but tarps sort of thing with handles, and what they would do is lift me out of my chair, lay me down on the tarp or blanket, and then carry me down that way. So it would take at least 2, probably 4 people to move me. And then, my issues don't end when I'm out of the fire. I can't sit up on my own, I can't stand up, and so I'm lying down somewhere, and if I end up in the hospital on a bed, then I have to start worrying about bed sores, and all the issues carry on and on. So we had quite a discussion about not just getting me out of the fire, but what do you do next?
Right, the aftercare, and how you do all that.
Exactly.
You mentioned the importance of your wheelchair coming with you. How did they take that when you're saying, I need this possession? You might view it differently because, like you say, it's critical for you being able to do literally anything. How did they view that when you said, this must come with me?
It was really quite interesting, and they totally seemed to understand, although they did understand it. And that's why we discussed about sheltering in place. Keep me with my wheelchair somewhere safe, and when it's safe to move, then we would leave. The other thing is we talked a lot about elevators, and a lot of elevators, when the fire alarm goes, simply go to the ground floor and shut down. So I'm helpless that way. So if I'm in an apartment building or an office building, not on the first floor, we'll try to hide somewhere away from the fire and wait for it to be safe to move. And if worse comes to worse, I'll leave my wheelchair and carry on.
Right, yeah, like at the end of the day, it's getting you out, not your wheelchair.
Exactly.
Do they have any other similar people with disabilities or other problems or similar problems to you, or again, are quadriplegics and other paraplegics a similar problem?
I'm sure they do, and I don't know if they've ever really talked to them, so that's the interesting part, right? They really have to make the effort to try to talk to them and find out what's happening. So, Isabel and I, we talked about it quite a bit. And people who are bedridden totally, someone who's on a medicine, an IV or something, they present a whole different problem as well. So all these things come together, and it was good to bring it up, and it was good to look at it. And I don't know if other people have stepped forward to talk to firefighters, but I found it really quite interesting to meet with them.
So how did you arrange it then? Did you bring it to them, or did they come to you? How did this meeting occur if this is not a normal thing?
Isabel's friend works as a firefighter. She's a firefighter, and she asked, we were having dinner, and we got talking. Well, how are you going to get me out of the fire? She says, well, we should get together with the firefighters and talk about it. So there's 4 crews in Chilliwack, and I've met with 2 of them so far, and it was very interesting to do that. And so it just sort of came up, and we put it together, and here I am. It worked out really well.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Like you say, it's a pretty important conversation,
Yeah.
I think, to have, and it's interesting that this isn't something that comes up in firefighting training, and you think it would be like a chapter of the firefighting handbook, but clearly not.
No, not at all.
Interesting. So getting back to other things we've been doing since last talk, this is all in the past month and a half.
Yeah.
You're also doing some renovations again. You're back to rebuilding the house.
Yeah, it's I think it's good. We're redoing the kitchen. Our kitchen was very nice, but it was old, and there was a lot of bottlenecks for me. I couldn't really get around. Our fridge stuck out very far. A couple of counters were in bad positions. So we finally decided that we'd do a renovation, and we put the fridge in where the freezer was and put in a different freezer in the pantry, and that cleared out a whole bunch of space in the kitchen. So that allows me to drive around the kitchen. I know I can't help much, but I can at least look at things and be a little bit of a pain in the butt.
So did you make so are you making the cabinets and drawers narrower so that you have more space between walls and the cabinets? Is that what you're doing, where you're kind of widening the space where humans and you yourself would go around?
Exactly. So one wall where there was a counter and the fridge sticking out, we just put in a wall of thinner cabinets, and that freed up space for the fridge and the pantry where there was cabinets before, and so that's worked out really well. And again, it just gives me space to get around. Our island has space for us to sit down now and have dinner at the island, which we've never had before. So that's really good.
That's good. It's good to hear. And like you say, it's a constant battle to make a house accessible. And like I said, you are in a unique position to know about accessibility and what needs it. And it's interesting that it's constant. It never ends. You always have to keep on to the next thing to make it more accessible.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you've been busy teaching firefighters and teaching nursing students and doing all this education in the world. I've been busy doing my own learning. As we mentioned, I'm in Nova Scotia doing training on the Aurora, but one of the reasons this episode took so long is that I was lucky enough to be sent over on exercise to Italy. So I got to take part in what is, I think, the largest NATO anti-submarine warfare exercise that takes place on a yearly basis. So as part of my training, I got to go to Italy and spend time flying the airplane, doing the training that we would do to hunt submarines and track vessels and that kind of stuff. But instead of doing it here in Greenwood, Nova Scotia, where there aren't any real submarines and we don't really have any boats to cooperate with, and we're simulating the whole thing, instead of having a fake submarine that doesn't actually exist, we're actually going and finding real submarines and actually working with a real boat. So this was really, really cool. I was really happy to go away and do this to get exposure to the real deal, as it were. And it's a little bit different when you're tracking a submarine and then you actually find the thing. It's a very different thing when you pass over this piece of ocean and say, oh, there's a submarine there, and there's actually a submarine instead of this simulated thing. Oh, good job, you found the fake submarine that's not actually there.
Yeah, it must be neat to go out and see everybody from all the different countries as well, and try to learn a bit about how they do it. Although I imagine you never really ran into them, did you?
Yeah, so we didn't run into them face to face. Really, we'd see them on occasion, just walking to the aircraft or something. But we didn't really get to talk face to face too much. We had an event at the end of the exercise where we kind of all got together and socialized a bit. But even then, we can't really talk about what we do too much because all the tactics, of course, are all confidential. So we can't really discuss in detail what we're doing. But what was interesting and what was kind of fun is that part of the training exercise and part of the real world is that we're doing handoffs with other airplanes. So, when we would go to find a submarine, a lot of the time there'd already be another airplane from a different nation out there who is currently tracking the submarine, and they will hand off the search to us. It's their time to come home and land. They've been out there for 8 hours or so they will hand off all the information to us, and the ideal situation is that they leave the top of the submarine just as we are arriving on top of the submarine. So you get to communicate over the radio and negotiate this handoff. And that sounds, that can be easy if you want to. It can get really complicated really, really fast, especially if you consider the fact we're communicating over the radio, we're trying to do this handoff, but we're also trying to be covert about it. You don't want to announce to anyone listening, the submarine is here, I am here, and we'll be there in 10 minutes, because now everybody knows that you found a submarine and where it is. So you have to kind of negotiate this dance of handing off this tasking that has to be confidential. You can't give away your position or their position or the submarine's position, but you have to negotiate this handoff safely. And add on to all of this that there are different nationalities speaking a second language, so a lot of the time there's accents and words that you don't quite make sense, and you have to go back and forth over the radio. That's not quite clear all the time. You can't hear them and somebody else is talking. So that was interesting, because in a simulator, then what we would do in the real world is we would just pretend this. We would say over the radio, okay, blah, blah, Pathfinder, this is Hunter, negotiate the handoff, and there's somebody who speaks clear, concise English on the other side of the radio who gives you the exact phrase you were expecting to hear, and everything goes according to plan. In the real world, that doesn't happen a lot of the time.
Exactly. It's a trial, isn't it, when it all goes sideways on you, and getting your equipment there on time and on station, and so it is fun, and it's fun to go somewhere else and live out of the hotel or the barracks and try something different. Always doing the same thing every day over the same piece of water or the same simulator. You lose interest. So that's really good.
Yeah.
That's exciting. But you should be heading to the West Coast soon, right?
Yeah, that's right. I'm just finishing up course. I basically only have my final check ride left, so hopefully wrapping that up in the next couple days here. And then we get to start the Great Canadian Road Trip Part 2 as we drive across the country again, my girlfriend and I. So it's going to, hopefully in the next week or so we'll start hitting the road. So probably the next couple weeks we'll be back, on the West Coast, on the best coast, as they say.
Yeah.
And back at it and doing the job from Comox. But as you mentioned, it's good to go away. It was good to see, because you get these real-world problems, the silly problems about communication with somebody in their second language, negotiating with a foreign ATC. The Italian ATC unit was atrocious. They don't like to do their work, as it seems. So we found out the first day the hard way that if you are even 1 minute late for your scheduled takeoff time, they will not give you a clearance, and they will make you wait for an indefinite period of time until they feel like giving you one. So if you are even a little bit late, you are going to be a lot late, no matter what. So that was fun, but it was good because, the other reason I was really happy to go is that this is the first thing I've done that's actually considered my job. That's silly to say, but up until now, I've been training to be a pilot in the Air Force, and although this is still training, we weren't actually hunting a foreign enemy sub. We're hunting friendly subs that are cooperating, but it's the first real world kind of thing I've gotten to do as part of my job, and it's 6 years in the making, so
yeah.
I was finally happy to do something and call it my job and say, this is what I do, this is my job.
It is a game, isn't it? It's so long to get to the end finally, but at least it's finally coming together. You can get out of the wonderful East Coast weather and move to the rain on the West Coast, where at least it's nice and warm. Yeah,
it might rain 8 months of the year, but at least it's a wet form of precipitation and not the snow that we get here.
Yeah, it's a warm wet, right? That's what you say.
Yeah, that's right, if you can call it that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was another reason why this podcast was delayed. Is just I was gone for a period of it. Um, and just before we move on to the main topic, the other thing I wanted to talk about is writing and sharing some posts that we do. As you know, we write stories occasionally. We share them on your website, myquadriplegic.life. And you write stories, and I write stories, and the rest of the family has also written some. But throughout my time, as a pilot in the Air Force, talking about being a student in training, I've been writing a blog about being a pilot in training in the RCAF, mostly to share with other people who are either joining or thinking about joining what the life is like and what the process is, and to try and answer some questions that people have because there's no good information about this, unfortunately. And I guess my point is I finally written a post. I finally wrote a new post after nearly 8 months of not writing. And this was something that was bugging me because I'd been writing consistently, and then as we were talking about, life just kind of catches up, and I had the best of intentions. I wanted to write about learning to fly multi-engines from jets. I wanted to talk about flying the Aurora, which is an old airplane that we still recruit to do a modern-day job. I wanted to talk about all of this. I want to talk about moving across the country for 8 months and doing that, and then coming back. I wanted to talk about Italy and doing a real-world job. I had the best of intentions, and just, I didn't. It's just one of these things where you get busy and life catches up, and I didn't write for so long, and I'm just happy that I finally sat down and said, this has to stop. I have to write something. Do you ever find that when you're trying to write a story for your website that you intend for weeks or months to write something, and you for whatever reason you put it off?
Oh, the story's in my mind and all set to go, but do you think I ever get to it? I'm so busy doing everything else that it just falls apart, and then at the end of the day, when you get a few minutes to write, you're so tired. I get quite fatigued. I think it's because I don't have very big lung capacity. I only have half of a normal person, a normal man, a normal male of my size lung capacity. So I think I get really tired even though I don't move. So sometimes I have to put my chair back, just catch my breath and start again. So that's happened a few times more than I care to admit, but such is life.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have that excuse, so I just get busy and then get lazy and don't write. But the blog is written, finally. I've gotten that off my chest, and we can finally, after 20 minutes of catching up, move into our main theme for today. Yeah. So this is a theme that you wanted to talk about. You put this in the document we share. And this is the power of social interaction. So why don't you kick us off and talk a little bit about why you wanted to bring this up on the podcast?
It's interesting, I think what has really saved me over the last 2 years, it's been 2 years and 8 days since I was injured, is the support from family and friends, everybody moving forward, giving me a hand, doing stuff for me. And like my friend Glenn just came in and gave me his bill for doing some electrical work in the kitchen, and I'm trying to make him charge me a proper rate, and he always gives me a discount, and I guess I need it. I'm not sure. It's a little bit difficult, but I find when I am having trouble that I have so many people to reach out to talk to, and we can talk a little bit about social media, Facebook, etc. But F2F, face-to-face, works the best. And I have a good friend who is coming over. We try to get together once a week, and he's learning backgammon and cribbage he knows already, and we just hang out and we do that. And it's really good for both of us, and I think that really helps my mentality, my how I feel about life, because as the evening goes on, we can vent about things. There's really no expectation, and we can talk, and we're face to face, and you can't really put things like you do on Facebook that life is good or bad. I mean, Facebook's a bit of a brag book, but it is interesting. So I find that having so many people reaching out just to talk and be part of my day, I think it really makes a difference. I've seen when I was at GF, the poor men and women who don't have those kind of interactions, how lonely and difficult it is. And so that way I was very lucky that I had so many people reaching out to help and make my days go faster. And again, I saw so many men and women just lying there waiting for something or someone to come by, and you really feel for them. It's difficult. If you don't have that support, it becomes very, very, very tough, I find.
Yeah, I can only imagine, and like you said, waiting in the hospital for hours all day, potentially waiting for somebody to come and visit, can be tough. So why do you think you had such a big network of supporters who did and want to come and see you and interact with you and be face to face, as you say? Why were you the fortunate one that had all of this?
Yeah, again, I'm not really sure. According to my sister Kath, I'm the most social in the family. I've always tried to keep in touch with people, send a little email for the birthday, or the weather's bad, I'm on the fifth hole and I'm 170 yards from the green and I'm thinking 5-iron and how is your day going? And I'm sending it to Ottawa in February and there's a huge snowstorm on. So, just making that effort to reach out and touch someone. And when all this happened, I think we had such a large group of people that we could reach out to, or knew of our situation, that it grew from there. And even now I'm forever on the phone and meeting for coffee and for lunch, and I make the effort, I really am the one who steps out to make it work, and I totally recommend that other people do too. The first step is the hardest, and after that you move forward and you'll find that people really want to talk. People really want to get out.
All it takes is one phone call to start a conversation. So I think this was, you've always talked about this. You've always, when I was young, and the way you've always raised us is to be polite, be interactive, and say hello to people you pass on the street and that kind of thing, and have a conversation. And I think, you've lived by that, as you say, and you just kind of, that's how you were raised, I think, and that's how you've lived your life. So when you worked at WestJet, and when we would go traveling together, you would know every single person in the building, literally from the CSA at the desk to the person at security to the agent who took your ticket at the gate. You would know everyone in that company. Do you think, did you do that consciously, or is this just something you do and that this pays spades in the long run when you need, the assistance and just the community support that you've received?
I just think I do it because I'm polite, Geez, where were we? We stopped to buy a case of beer. Am I allowed to say that? Of course I am. We stopped to buy a case of beer, and we walked into the store. We have just regular liquor stores here. We don't have to go to the government one. And the ladies were standing there, and they said, well, welcome. And I said, and how are you? And we had, a 5-minute conversation about nothing. But now they know me. Even if I wasn't in a wheelchair, they would know me the next time. And now it's more of a social event than just buying a case of beer, right? And then if I have an issue, they're all willing to understand. They know me. It makes a difference. Just that little step to say hello to people, I find changes everything. And it used to drive Isabel nuts. I'd say hello to everybody and how are you doing, and start laughing with them. And I said, do you know that person? I says, no, not at all. I'm just being polite. And I know it sounds stupid, but it's that simple. And you make that effort, that connection, and suddenly you have your best friends, all our friends in Chilliwack, most of them are from our kids' events, kids' sports, kids' theater, music, church, whatever we were doing. And you just say hello to the other parents and how are you? And gee, our kids are doing this, that, and they're doing well. And everybody wants to talk. Everybody just needs that first step, right? And everybody's so shy, and I can understand that. I was terrible in high school. Couldn't talk to a soul. And now I just talk to everybody. It's easier. Anyways.
You've overcome that shyness.
Yeah.
So you also, this is another thing that just goes to show the network you built. And again, you didn't consciously build it. This is the reward you get for building this repertoire with so many people, that when you had your accident and when we got to the point of buying you a wheelchair, I think your RMC class from 35 years ago reached out and purchased it for you. So what's that like to have people like, you knew them 35 years ago, but I could be wrong. I don't think you've been in touch with every single one of them for the past 30 years. So how does that happen? Is this just, were you just a superstar at RMC at the military college and that they all loved you, so they all remembered you? Why do you think they felt the need to reach out and not only offer their support, but offer their financial support, which sometimes can be the hardest part of support?
It's, in a way, it's bizarre. I don't understand it at all. I mean, I always feel our class was only about 180, and of about 180 of them, I probably knew 175 of them quite well. I mean, again, hi, how you doing? How's life treating you? And people want to talk, and so everybody sort of knew me. I was sort of a fun guy. I wasn't very military. I wanted to get an education, and I wanted to learn how to fly, and the military part was, I hate to say, sort of secondary, but everybody seemed to know me, and I wasn't like the life of the party. I was just there. And then when the accident happened, a whole bunch of them banded together to reach out and help, and they talked to all the other guys, and everybody stepped up. I mean, it was incredible. And again, I'm just a guy in a chair. That's what I keep saying, right? And but I really think social interaction and just going out and saying hi, and you're gonna sit here and listen to this and say, well, I haven't talked to so and so in years. Well, so and so is probably waiting for you to call, and you'll be surprised. And once you get over that few awkward minutes, everything moves forward. And when I tell medical students about, you can teach someone to be a caregiver, but it's hard to teach someone to care, I actually talk about, you have to reveal a little bit about yourself, that you have kids, or you're working hard, or anything, and then you start sharing with your patient, your client, and you become friends, not just a client and a worker. You become friends, and it really works. My care is very intimate. I don't move a muscle, so someone has to get me dressed, someone has to help me go to the bathroom, wash me. So you might as well be friendly and get to know each other, because it's very intimate, and it's easier if you just talk about it and talk about your lives. I mean, I don't know how I do it, but I just tell me what you're doing in your life, or do you have kids, or what do you do for fun, or are you from Chilliwack, or anything, and away we go.
And then you start a conversation, you get to know each other just a little bit more.
Yeah, and then you're two people. You're not a client and a worker. You're two people getting through life. Right,
and so I also want to talk a bit about, so you've talked a lot about face-to-face interaction and the importance of this, the importance of having the support of somebody making a phone call and getting to know you and being personal. But we also have a pretty large social following on the internet. It's exclusively. Like, we have thousands of people following Facebook who interact with us day to day, but you've never met and never had that personal connection. So how is this different or similar? Does this provide support? The whole point of Facebook is to move the social interaction online. And there's a lot wrong about Facebook, but there's also probably, I think, a little bit of good about Facebook that works in this capacity. Do you find this is true? Like, did you find it support to have strangers reaching through Facebook or other forms of social media to offer their support? And was that beneficial to you? Or is this just like, why is this person talking to me?
That's a really good question, boy. I found that a lot of people I don't know, and a lot of likes, and that's excellent. And then doing things like this podcast, doing videos that Isabel's been doing with me to show people my equipment and how we get through life. People have really responded to that, so I find that really quite exciting that's happening. How do I explain that? I'm not really sure. It's been really good, and again, I find Facebook and stuff a little bit difficult because it's not that face-to-face interaction, so you really don't know. Sometimes I'll write something and I'll think it's humorous, and someone else will think it's mean, and it's the tone, and it's really difficult to get. Face-to-face, you get the tone right away, and you know where people are coming from. But again, that's just my opinion.
Yeah. Tone is the forever difficulty of the internet, and there will always, no matter what you say, there will always be somebody who disagrees with you. That's just the nature of having an audience of an indefinite amount. Just having literally millions of people can view it. Somebody's going to disagree with you, and they're going to let you know. But so my perspective, and I'm part of the younger generation, has really embraced the social media, and I have all the social media accounts and all that stuff. And I do use it a fair bit. And here we are, like you say, we're doing a podcast, speaking to whoever wants to listen. This isn't just for friends and family. This is for strangers who want to join us on a conversation. Yeah. And we do videos, like you say, and we share all this. And I write my blog, my pilot blog that I mentioned, and I get emails from complete strangers saying I am joining the military or thinking about joining, and they ask me questions. And I find that kind of interaction, I really enjoy that. Even though this is a complete stranger, we're having a conversation. And, like you say, there's always be somebody who disagrees, and there are plenty of people who disagree with me and whatever opinions I happen to share. But I do find those interactions to be beneficial. I like them. And it's just like, I don't know what it is. I'm not sure why I do it either, but that interaction I find is powerful, and it is good to know that somebody is reading what you are putting on the internet and somebody likes what you are doing. There will also people who don't like what you are doing, but I find that to be a huge reward. So when, the other interesting thing, so this is perhaps a backstory that not a lot of people know, that this giant Facebook following that we keep talking about, this wasn't intentional. We didn't create a Facebook page with the intention of sharing with strangers. We had created it initially to communicate with friends and family who were not, close to us, and say, this is what's going on, and this is Jim's status, and this is his recovery, and he's in the hospital, and just share the information of the event that was going on early after the accident. And all of a sudden it snowballed, and we had, hundreds and then thousands of people who were following. So what was that like to you? What was your reaction when you realized all of a sudden this went from 100 people, family and friends, to 1,000 people that I don't know?
Overwhelming. Yeah, just weird. I didn't think people would be that interested in what's happening. So that's fantastic that we are moving forward like this. I hope people find it beneficial. I know we've slowed down in our Facebook posts, but our lives have been just rolling through life. I mean, I don't want to brag and say I did this speech or this talk, or a lot of my life is just waiting for the rain to end so I can go out and enjoy the weather, because it's tough on me, the rain and the wind. So yeah, it's pretty interesting that people watch this, and I think that we have 150 followers on our YouTube channel now, and it's been fun. It's interesting, and I hope I'm making a difference for someone.
Well, I think at least for the 100 or so that are following on YouTube, the people that follow this, it is clear, I think, with all the stuff we've done, that people do want to be part of your life, whether you want them there or not. They are interested for whatever reason they find that interesting. They want to be part of it. And I think it's good that even if you don't fully understand why people want to be involved, you understand that people are finding it valuable. Yeah. And I think it's good that you want to share. I mean, I love doing these podcasts just because I want to just talk to you about these things. But we've also found that other people are interested, other than just me. people are interested about your life and just want to be
Yeah.
part of it. So, I mean, again, how I'm asking you the tough questions here, but how does it feel to have these people who are saying, let me in, let me be part of your life. I want to see what you were doing day to day, as strange as that is to you.
Yeah, yeah, it's good. I mean, again, if I think we're helping somebody, not just ourselves, we're helping somebody make their lives better. That's a good thing. So let's keep doing that. And yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, I've definitely had fun so far, and even if no one listens, I'm happy to keep doing these conversations
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
And so, with that, I think we'll get ready to wrap it up.
Yeah.
So I think we can leave off by saying, social interaction is something that we've really benefited from. That it's provided a huge amount of support for you yourself, but also for me and the rest of the family to see, to have the support group that we have is incredible. And you've talked about how that support group comes from just building those face-to-face relationships. Just talk to somebody, just be a human. And so, as you said, if there's somebody you're thinking of right now who you haven't spoken to in 6 months, a year, a decade even, just call them and just talk to them. You never know. You guys might, rekindle that friendship that has gone stale for no reason other than just nobody's decided to call. And I think that's ultimately the lesson here. If you're going to take nothing out of this, is just talk to your friends and stay in touch with people, because I don't think I think it's easy to miss how much that interaction means to people.
Yeah, and don't hesitate. The first step is the hardest, and you'll be surprised. People will love to talk to you, and suddenly you're going for a coffee or dinner or a beer, and go for a walk. It's very rewarding. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. With that, I think we're going to wrap it up. So if you're listening to this podcast and you don't know much about us, you want to learn more, you can find us on Facebook at Jim Ryan Rolling Through Life. You can follow Jim's YouTube channel. There'll be a link in the show notes. And if you have an email, if you just want to reach out to us and have a bit of that social interaction we've been talking about, you can write us an email at contact@myquadriplegic.life. And you can also go check out the stories on www.myquadriplegic.life. Thanks again for joining me, Dad. I can't wait for the next one. Hopefully it will be in less than a month and a half. Hopefully we can do one live when I drive across the country and get to see you again. And thank you so much again for joining me.
Yeah, we have lots happening in April, so stay tuned, and hopefully we'll have lots to talk about. Thanks for listening, everyone.